Hey, it's Legendary Beatz here from LegendaryBeatsOnline.com. Today we're going to be talking about booking contracts. This is when a venue books you as the artist to perform at their venue. So we're going to even talk about things like the stage, we're going to talk about power, we're going to talk about the recording that the venue is going to do of your performance. We're going to talk about compensation. We're going to talk about even parking. We're going to talk about all these things in this segment here in this video series. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first section we're going to talk about is intention. So the contract is going to state what the intention is of the contract and of this agreement. So pretty much the intention will be that you as the performer or artist is actually going to perform what is called the performance throughout the contract, and that will be the agreement. It's based upon you actually being hired as an independent contractor to perform and provide that service. An independent contractor is an individual who is hired to provide a service. So you can be connected to a label or you could be connected to another organization, but you are hired, you yourself is hired to perform that individual service, a single service, in order to fulfill your side of the agreement. So that first section that you may see, of course you should see it because it's going to explain pretty much the rest of your contract will be based on that, is the intention of the contract for that booking from the venue that's going to be booking you. Alright, so the next three sections, we're going to kind of group them together. It's going to be the date of performance, the place of performance, and the performance itself. So the date of performance is going to state exactly when and the time that the performance is going to be taking place. So it's going to say if it's at 3 o'clock on October 25th, it's going to state that in this section here. Now for the place of where the performance is going to be, is going to actually say the place or the venue that this performance is going to be done at. And then in the section where it says performance, it's stating that what type of performance this will be. So you as a music artist, you will be performing music as entertainment for the performance. So let's go over that again. So the date of the performance it'll show the exact date that when this performance is going to be. The place of the performance is going to state where exactly the place you will be performing or where the venue is that you will be performing at. And then performance, it will actually have the description of your performance in the state of what the performance actually is. Since you're a music artist, they're hiring you to provide music as the entertainment, which then will be your performance. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You may see it like that, or you may see it stated a little different in different contracts. It depends from different venues. It could be different, but these are small things that you should just understand, and so that when you see it, you would understand what it means. The next section you might see is the agreement to perform. What that means is that you as the artist agree to the terms and conditions stated in the contract beyond that point. So it means that you agree that, what the money will be given to you. You agree that you have to be there at this time prior to the event. You have to, you agree that whatever recording that they will do is sufficient, that the equipment that you'll be using is okay. Pretty much in this section, you are agreeing to whatever the contract is stating. So pretty much that says once you sign it, once you verbally agree to it, most likely you will sign it, that you are agreeing to all the terms and conditions that are stated in that contract. Okay, the next section that you're going to see is probably the most important section. It's the price of the performance. In this section, it's going to state exactly how much you will be paid for the performance. And in most cases, you'll be paid that amount prior to you actually performing. So before you get onto the stage, before you actually perform, you'll get paid. You should be getting paid either to you or to your manager prior to you actually performing. Otherwise, it'll be stated in the contract either after or whatever it may be, whatever you agree upon. But also remember, you are hired as an independent contractor, so you're not an employee. You're not under their insurance or anything like that. You're there just to perform that one service. And in this section, it shows exactly how much you're going to be paid and how the payment will be made to you. So if it's going to be payable by check, then it will state payable to so-and-so by check or whatever. If it's going to be paid cash, it's going to be this amount is paid cash to so-and-so, whatever. That's what it's going to state in this section here. This is probably the most important. This is the thing that you probably should take the most interest in, because that's how you're going to get paid. So it's good that you look for that and make sure that you understand it and ask whatever questions you can and clear everything up prior to actually agreeing upon this agreement or a contract itself. In this section, you may see something called recording, reproduction, or transmission of the performance. So what this means is that the venue, most likely you'll see something like this, you might not. Some venues might have this, probably if you've seen or heard of some comedians when they perform, they do not allow cell phones being used during their performance, or maybe some artists do that as well. So in this part of the contract, it may state something like this, that the venue will try to, as much as they can, to prevent any recording or reproduction or transmission of your performance. So they'll try, if they see someone videotaping the performance, they'll try to stop them. If they see someone trying to reproduce that content or promote it or whatever without your consent, they'll try to stop it if they find out about it. And as far as transmitting, if someone is actually live streaming this somewhere, they will try to stop it as best as they can. So you may see this in the contract, but if you're now coming up, if you're an upcoming artist, it might not be something that you would see. This is mostly for bigger artists who try to keep their performances more exclusive, which makes people more inclined to purchase tickets to see the performance for themselves instead of having it online where they don't have to then pay for further performances. So then again, you may see it, you may not. So it's something for you to look for. If you see it, it'll be great. If you don't see it, you can ask for it to be added in and see what the venue says. Okay, this next section is called, wait a minute, I will remember. All right, in this next segment, it's called excuse of obligations. You may see this, you may not see this, but this is pretty much covering the venue in any situation where they cannot control, where they're not actually responsible for what happened. So this can be an act of God, which is like a storm or something that caused the venue to be blown away or something like that. Sickness, some form of strike, some form of act of violence or something that happens that is out of their control. This now excuses the venue from causing from that interruption actually happening. So they're not responsible for it. If it happens, they're not liable for it. And that's for you to understand that if you were supposed to perform at that time and something happened and then the deal falls through because of something out of their control, they're pulling away their responsibility to that happening, pretty much. So it's something that you may see, and it may be something that you may not see. If it's there, it's good for you to understand what that means, because it protects the venue. It doesn't really help you because then you end up not performing, you end up not getting any money. But pretty much this is stating that if something does happen, that they're not going to pay you for the performance because you ended up not performing because of something that they cannot control. That's something that happened. It's unfortunate, but it's something they got to cover themselves for. Come on. All right, so in this next section, it talks about being hired as the independent contractor. So as we stated before, it means that you're hired as an individual to perform the service. So in this case, it's going to be a service of the performance. So what this section will say, or may say something along these lines, that you will be performing in the sense that you are hired, but not as an employee. You're not an employee of the venue. You're not under any insurance that they have, their coverage. You're not on their payroll. There's no tax withholding, stuff like that. You are responsible for all of that on your own. And pretty much just saying that as you perform, you go ahead and you perform. They're not going to interrupt you for your performance. They're hiring you for that, and that's what you're responsible for. But you're not an employee of the venue, so they're not there to kind of tell you, no, you can't do this, or yes, you can do that. They're hiring you to perform, and that's what you're there for. All right, so in this section we're talking about merchandising. So in many cases, some artists have their own merchandise and some venues have their own merchandise and things that they give out. So in this clause, you will see something along the lines of stating that maybe the venue will not allow you to sell any merchandise other than what is already being sold at the venue. So if you have shirts with your name on it, like how this shirt says Legendary Beatz, and I went to a venue, I was hired, and they stated in the clause in the contract that I cannot sell merchandise other than what they sell there at the venue, then I cannot sell a Legendary Beatz t-shirts. So that's ultimately what that means. It kind of gives you the short end of the stick, but you can get written consent, or you could ask them for permission to sell your merchandise. They may limit how much merchandise you can sell, but once you actually ask and tell them that this is what you're interested in doing, and maybe you could decide a cut of what you make there, and even if they were to sell it for you and they take your cut out of it, all of these things are things that you can be flexible with the venue, but you have to understand what that actually means, so that way you can ask the right questions and suggest the right suggestions. So it's good for you to know this, so that way when you see it, you don't go and start selling your merchandise and mess yourself up and void the contract. You don't want to do that, because then you won't get paid. Alright, so in this section we're talking about promotion. So the venue will do everything in their power to promote the performance, in a sense that before the performance they're going to try their best to promote as much as they can with advertisements or with using your picture or anything that they can do to increase the people who come to see that performance. So you may see this in the contract, you may not. Just like everything else, it may be different depending on the level of artist that you are and how professional the venue is. But it's good to know this because of the fact that if they're actually promoting it for you, that helps you, because if you're an upcoming artist and the venue actually tries to promote the show for you, and it's more better when the venue, especially if they have a lot of people who go there, when they promote it for you, that way you have a more chance of getting more people coming to your performance, which means you have more exposure, or a chance of more exposure for your music to reach more people. So that's why it's good to ask about the merchandise issue, because if the venue now promotes your show, you're performing, now at the end of the show, if you want to sell your merchandise, which then will help you get people actually following you outside of the show, that's why you should know about those things and search for those things in the contract, so you could then ask for it. Because all these things then build up on each other, which helps you gain bigger exposure and reach more people and grow your brand, so that way you're not just stuck as just performing this one time and you leave and nobody thinks about you again. So it's good to know all these things, and we're going to talk about a little bit more things. It's not as important, but it's still good to look for it in the contract. All right, we're going to kind of squash the next three clauses together. This one will be parking, stage, and sound system. So it's amazing that they actually would have this in there, but it makes a big difference, especially if you're bringing a lot of your own gear. So let's talk about the parking. So the parking, they may say something along the lines that they'll allow you probably 4 hours prior to your performance and 3 hours after your performance. But of course you can park between that time of the performance as well. So what that means is that you have 3 hours prior to unload, take all your stuff out, have your vehicle there, however you got there, whatever vehicle you have a parking space for it. You're able to perform, and then after your performance, you still have a couple of hours to load all your stuff back into your vehicle with no problems. So it's good to see this, especially if you're a one-man band, you're driving around in your car and you're going state to state, you're doing your own little tour kind of thing. It's good to know this because you need a place to park your car. You don't want to be searching for parking and then you're late for your own gig. So this is a good thing to look for. Next section will be stage. So in this area, it actually tells you, or should tell you, where things are going to be. So they say that the stage here, or actually in the parking I should say that as well, the parking, usually you'll say where your parking is, and it'll say whether it's in a close proximity to the the venue, how far it is, and things like that. Usually it will be close, so it might be behind the venue, something easy access. So, and then the next section, as you were saying, stage, is going to talk about how close you are to electrical outlets and things like that, how much access you have to it, how you're able to prepare on the stage. All these things details will be in that section right there. And then what was the last section? So you said parking, stage, and sound system. Now for the sound system, depending on the venue, it may be the responsibility of you, the independent contractor, the music artist, to actually bring your own sound system for your performance. Now, if you don't have your own sound system, then this is where you would ask your question to the venue, say, hey, can you provide a sound system for me to use? Or do you have the sound system for me to use? And that's why it's good to look for these things in the contract, because now, if that wasn't in the contract, how would you know whether you should bring a sound system or not? Unless you're familiar with the venue and you've heard things. But it's always good to have it in the contract, so that way everything is concrete and you don't have to ask any questions and there's no doubt, and it protects you. So these are some things that you should know. We have a few more things. We're almost there to the end. All this information is going to help and it's going to benefit you. Alright, so let's get into it. Okay, so in this next section, you may see something like this agreement is hereby under the governing, or the law of the governing. Alright, so in this next section, you may see something talking about governing law. Now what that means is it's going to say something along the lines that this agreement is under the governing law of whatever state it may be, or whatever law it may be. And then it may say something about that if there are any conflicts of interest or anything that, any disputes of this agreement, that we take into court and that it'll go through an arbitration process, and that anything that is then agreed upon by the judge or by the court, there will be a binding agreement. So pretty much this is saying that, okay, if you performed and you had an issue with something that was agreed upon in the contract, and you go ahead and fight the venue on it, or vice versa, you take it to court, whatever the court agrees upon and says that you should do or that the venue should do, then that is what the final say is. So that's what this part of the contract is stating. So it's stating that, okay, we had a disagreement. Okay, so let's bring in a third party. Third party is the judge or the court. We take it to the court, whatever they say, whatever is agreed upon by the judge or the court, that is what we will follow. So if the venue says okay, if the court says it's okay, the venue has to pay whatever, okay, then the venue's gonna pay. If you damage something as the artist or something like that, and the court says okay, sorry, I find that you're guilty or whatever, that you have to pay, then therefore the artist has to pay. So that's what this section is saying, that whatever agreement is made outside of this agreement by the third party, if you two have a conflict of whatever kind, that you both agree that you will follow suit with whatever the agreement is made outside. So that's what this section is good for. Because it's good for you to know that this is in there, because if there is a conflict, let's say that you have an issue with the venue and something that happened within this contract. So now when you go into, or you could go ahead and sue the venue, whatever, and then they're gonna say, no, we don't think that's what happened, or whatever, and they fight you on it, and probably they have more money than you, get better lawyers, and then you're going back and forth at court and blah blah blah. But with this section being in there, once you go to court and an agreement is, and something is made, answer is given by the court or the judge, now you two are both parties are now obligated to follow through what that agreement is by the court or the judge, whatever they say that you have to do. So that's why it's good that it's in there. So look it over. It's called governing law, maybe called something else, but it's going to say that this contract is under the governing law of whatever. And that's what you should look for, and maybe word it differently. It may sound a little bit different, but this is why you should get a legal lawyer to look over these things for you. or someone who is familiar with this, or you can do your own research. Okay, and then last and not least, there'll be a section that states something along the lines of disagreement or agreement of disagreement, something along those lines. Pretty much in this section, it's going to state that you agree, both parties agree that whatever is stated in this contract supersedes or overrides anything that was verbally said or talked about prior to this, and that only what is stated in this contract is agreed upon, and that both parties are going to fulfill their side of what was agreed upon based on this contract. Then they would sign, it would say something about in witness of blah blah blah, and both parties are going to sign their names and the date, and that kind of puts everything together. Finish up the contract. You agree on what the contract states, you agree on where the venue is going to be, you agree on the time of when the venue is going to be, you agree on the payment, you agree on whether you are responsible for the sound system or the venue is, you agree on where the parking is going to be, you agree upon the compensation, how much you're getting paid, and you agree on whether it's okay for, if you guys have a dispute, for the answer to be given by the court or the judge, and that to be the deciding factor. That's what you are signing off to now. You're now agreeing, and then you go off, then they have you perform, then you get paid, and then everybody goes home happy. So I hope this video helped you out. If you had any questions about this prior, hope it answered all of your questions. If you do have any more questions, please place it in the comments below. Also, if you thought that this video helped you out a lot, please like and subscribe to this page and video, so that you'll get more updates on videos like this when I post them out. Also remember that contracts like this can be different based on the venue that you go to, but these are the basic things that you can look for. There may be more things and there may be less things, but you can always ask to have contracts revised or changed if you think there should be something that's added in there that's going to benefit you or the venue. Okay, so thanks again for watching this video. Remember, be you, be legendary. And again, I'm Legendary Beatz from LegendaryBeatsOnline.com and this YouTube page, Legendary Promo TV. All right, I'm out. Peace.